we will start our frequency distribution table from yesterday lecture. We have 100 workers, and this is a class limits and the frequency for each wages, daily wages. And we have done the histogram and the polygon and the ogive using the class limits and the frequency. Today, we will add the class boundary. So we would like to add column here. Okay. So to add a column here, you just click here and insert, and you insert column. Okay. So we'll have column for the class boundary. So we call this one class boundaries. Is it boundaries? Okay. How to make the class boundaries? We will take half from the beginning of the class. So it will be 17.5. 2, and we add half to the upper limit of the class. So we'll have 2.24.5. Once you have done the first one, and you know the class limit, the class width, sorry. Yes, the class width is very clear from the class boundary. 17.5, you take it from 24.5, so you will have 7. If you subtract the end of the second class from the end of the first class, we will have the class limit. Or you subtract the start of the second class minus the start of the first class, you will have the class limit as well. So 25 minus 18, 7, and also 31 minus 24, 7, and also the class boundary 24.5 minus 17.5 is also 7. Once I know the class width is 7, so from the first one I can create the next classes by adding the class width. When you add 7 to 17.5, so you will have 24.5. 2, you add 7 to the 24.5, so you have 31.5. To finish the second one, go for the third one, add 7 to this one, so 31.5. You notice the end of the first class is the beginning of the second class, so you delete the gaps between the bars here. So it will be better for you to use in class boundaries. And this is the idea behind using the class boundary. Now, if you add 7 again, you will get the end of the third one. Let's go for the second one. As I said, the end of this one is the beginning of the second, the next one. 45.5, add 7 to this one, so it will be 45.5, okay, to 52.5. And you have here 52.5 to add 7 to this, so add 7 to this one, so it will be 59.5. Okay, is it correct? Now the last one, it will be 59.5 to add 7, so you have 66.5. So yes, this is the boundary of each division. We know how to find the boundary. You subtract half from the lower bound and you're adding half to the upper bound. Now we finish the class boundaries. Okay. We will take something new today. We will call it the midpoint. I will add another column here. And I call this one the midpoint. Midpoint. Okay. This midpoint is the midpoint of the classes. How to find the midpoint? You're just adding the record. How to find the midpoint? Either you're adding the beginning of the class to the end of the class and dividing by 2, okay? Or you adding the beginning of the class boundary to the end of the class boundary, and you divide it by 2. You will have the same. Let's go for the class limits first. You adding 18 plus 24 divided by 2.
دكتور
You have
30.
21, right? So you have 21. Now, if you do it with the class boundaries, okay, you will have the same 21. Let's do it by the class boundary. In the class boundary, you add the... Yes, we will do it from the class boundaries. If you're adding 17.5 plus 24.5 and you divide it by 2, remember, when we use the class limits, we have 21, and we should have the same answer here. Yes, it is 21. Once you have done the midpoint for the first class or the class boundary is the same answer, you can add the width of the class to get the rest of the midpoint. So I add 7 to 21, I will have 28. This 28 will be the average of 25 and 31, or the average of 24.5 and 31.5. Okay? If you would like to check, you can check. But instead, I'm doing the midpoint for the first class and adding the class width. So I have 35, and they have 42, and they have, I'm adding 7. Okay. So it will be 49. And we have 7 again, 56. And the last one, when I add 7, it will be 63. I finish the midpoint. Okay. Now, let's go and we are going to graph histogram. There is no problem with the histogram if I am using the class limit. Okay, I'm holding the control key to go for the frequency, because the polygon consists of the frequency and the class limits in the x-axis and the frequency in the y-axis. Now I am shading the class limits and the frequency. I would like to have the histogram. So I will go for the bar chart, because I know there is a link between the bar chart and the histogram. The histogram is a bar chart without a gap between the columns, right? Or between the bars. How to get rid of this one? I would like to have the bars with number in the front. Okay.
Doctor,
And I
but you
would
don't
like...
say that we
Yes,
should take the
Khaled,
class
let me finish.
boundaries.
Let me finish, please. Okay, so I finish the bar chart. I click in any bar, I will get this window, and also exactly in this option. Okay, so I have to delete the gap between this one. So I have the histogram. So I will call this one histogram. So I guarantee now it is histogram because there is no space, no gaps between the bars. Okay. So this is frequency histogram, right? Because later on, I will have cumulative frequency and relative frequency, but it's better to call it frequency histogram. Now I finish the histogram. If I do the histogram, instead of using the class limit, I will use the class boundary, and we will compare between them. So instead of this one, I'll be using the class boundary and hold the control key to skip this column and go for the by the right hand side, go to shade the frequency. I go for insert, and I go for the bar chart. Also, I'm going to choose the one with the numbers. To delete the gap, double click in the bar. I have this one. Be careful, you have to choose the option for axis, and you delete the gap between them, right? Let's go and compare between these two. The difference between these two. The main here is your minimum value inside this class, right? You make sure it is not in the boundary, right? You make sure when you use a class boundary, every data inside the classes, not in the border, right? This is why you use a class boundary, to get rid of any data to be in the border of the bars. Clear? Let's go for the polygon.
دكتور تاني ممكن معلش.
دكتور أنا ما فهمت يعني شو ليش نستعمل هذه
Now, used to have the polygon using the class boundary or the class limit. Let's go for the class boundary. We prefer the class boundary to guarantee the boundary value will be inside the classes. And I go for the frequency, right? I'll go for the polygon. The polygon here is called the line shape. So I'll go for insert. So I go for insert, okay, and I'll go for the line, and I choose this one. Okay, I choose this one. This is the first one. Okay. Now, this is, I call it what? I call it frequency polygon. Okay. Look at this one. Yes, here you guarantee the 18 inside the line, right? Start from here. Okay. So it is better this one. Let's go to see if we use the midpoint. If we see this one using the midpoint. So I will graph the midpoint with the frequency, right? Using the same type of shape. This is line 1. Okay. Yes. Now I should have the midpoint. Let's go to the other side. Okay. Trying to know what's from here. Okay. Let's go back to this one. Pause. Yes. So using the midpoint to graph the polygon, okay. So you shade the midpoint with the frequency. In this case, you cannot use the bar chart or the line one. You would like to have a shape like X and Y, right? So this one will be the polygon if you go for like this one. So yes. So when you're using the midpoint to do the polygon, you have to use the scattered plot, not the line one when you use the class bound. This is the main difference between them, right? Let's go and see which one is better for us to choose. Look at this one. Can you let me know what is the difference? Let's choose this one only. Okay. Also this one. Let's go to choose a number. Which one with the values here? Yeah, the scatter plot doesn't give me the number. Okay. Now, which one is better for you? Use this one or that one?
one.
This one
First
or
one.
that one?
First one.
For me, I prefer this one, the midpoint. Do you know why?
Yes.
Yeah, do you know why? Because you guarantee you have the midpoint of the class here, right? Which is 21 and 5, right? So you have 5 frequencies, and then later on, we will use this one to have the mean and the standard deviation and everything. So we are using the midpoint to calculate something called, we will call it later on, central tendency measurement and dispersion measurement, right? So they prefer the midpoint with this one. But the midpoint, when you graph it, you don't graph it from the line graph. You graph it from the scatter plot, right? And you choose this one. If you choose this one, you go for the UGAI. Okay. The last thing we can do is called the time series. So you have the time and you calculating something with respect to the time. What we can say, the height, okay, of people to say. So if we said 1 year and second year, and we can go year 5 by 5. The 5 years old will be how long? 10 years old will be how long? 15 will be how long? Okay, 20 will be how long?
Doctor, when we use the midpoint, we don't use the lines, huh?
Yes. Sorry?
We use the scattered plot.
Yes, we use a scatter plot. This is what I said. Yeah. Let's go. Once you have time or years, okay? I said maybe my son, or and he was born in 2001, right? In 2001, he was roughly around 40 centimeters. When in 2010, say, I'm not going to jump too much because it's not very old. 2005 is becoming roughly 60. Okay, in 2010 is becoming roughly 132. In 2015, we jumped to 160, and 2020 is becoming taller than me. Okay. So once you have a time and you have anything related to the time, this is, we call it the time series. To represent this one, let's format this one a little bit in the middle and make table with border, and how to graph the time series. We'll go also with the scatter plot. So we use the scatter plot with the polygon when you use a midpoint, or the UGAI when you use a midpoint, and also with the time series when you would like to have that time series. When you have a time series, you use a scatter plot, right? So you have the height in the y-axis, and you have the years in the x-axis. So now I think we finish chapter 2 completely. Let's go for the question for this chapter. I got it from the step-by-step elementary statistics for Blueman book.